Welcome back, everybody. We are going to move on into lesson 2. Now, this is going to focus more specifically on the concept of career planning. Before we do go into this lecture, if you have not completed the bell ringer for this lesson, pause this video and take the time to do so. It's going to be 2 pages and it's going to be 30 different statements. And what you're going to do for each of those statements is you are going to identify if it is a job, if it is a career, or if it is both that this statement applies to. So if you haven't completed that before going into this lecture, pause this, take a few minutes to do so, just so we all kind of are going into this on the same page. Now, running on the assumption that from here on out, everybody has completed that bell ringer, one of the things that you should have noticed in that bell ringer is that one of the biggest differences between a job and a career is that careers require planning. So lesson 2 is going to focus specifically on how myPACE approaches career planning and how working backwards is the most effective way to make your way forwards. So we're going to delve into that now. Let's say that I were to hand you this maze, and all I would say is solve it. No other instructions than that, just solve it. Looking at it might be a little bit overwhelming, especially because right at the beginning, we see 4 different options. Okay, well, which one is going to be the right one to get us down to the solution of this maze? And that can be really overwhelming. That's crazy. You have no way of indicating whether or not you have made the right choice. But if I were to hand you this maze and say, I want you to solve this maze by beginning at the end and working your way backwards, rather than having 4 options to start with, suddenly you only have 1. And if you work your way backwards, you'll notice that that one solution is the only pipe to the maze for a significant period of time. And by the time you get to all of that craziness that lead to those 4 entrances to the maze, your path is a lot more clearly defined and you have a lot less issues figuring out where it is you need to go. You're not going to find a dead end quite as easily working backwards compared to guessing where you need to start and going from there. This idea of working backwards is called backwards planning. Essentially what this is you're going to decide on an end goal and you're going to figure out the requirements for that end goal. And then you're going to figure out the requirements for the requirements of that end goal. And then you're going to figure out the requirements of the requirements for the requirements of that end goal, and so forth. And you're going to continue doing that, taking one step closer to the present day until you either hit today or all of the requirements are met. So at that point, you know what your absolute first step is going to be. This sounds a lot more complicated than it really is. We do this naturally. It's just a matter of making yourself aware of it. Let's say that you wanted to go and see a movie, because those are a thing that might be open someday in the future. And that movie is playing tonight at 8 p.m. Okay, this is your end goal. How do we do this? All right, our goal is to go see a movie at 8 p.m. Well, in order for us to go and see a movie, there's really only one thing that we need. We need a ticket. Everything else is obsolete. We only need one thing guaranteed to go and see a movie in a movie theater at 8 p.m. You need a ticket to that movie. Okay, what do we need in order to get a ticket? We need money. We need to be able to exchange money at the theater. Okay? What do we need in order to do that? Well, we need to be at the theater in order to buy the ticket. Okay, what do we need to do that? We need to make sure that we arrive through some type of transportation, whether that is car, bus, we're walking, we're carpooling, what have you. We need to know what type of transportation that is. Next, we need to figure out the route and travel time. So how long is it going to take you in order to get to the movie theater, to buy the ticket, to use the ticket, to get into the movie? Okay. And if we wanted to, we could take it a couple steps further back than what this slide is actually providing us. If we know the amount of time it takes for us to travel, we know what time we need to leave, and let's say this isn't just us going out with friends, maybe we're going on a date. We don't want to just toss on some clothes and head out the door. Like, no, we want to get ready. We want to look nice. So, we know, now that we know all of these preliminary steps, what time we need to start getting ready. So, we are able to effectively plan backwards. And this is something that your brain just kind of does on its own. We're just taking the time to make notice of it. I hope there are no questions, but if there are, feel free to reach out to your myPACE coach and we are happy to sit down one-on-one with you and clarify anything that you might need. But we are going to move forward and look at this more from a career planning example so that you're able to see the practical side of how we are approaching this in myPACE. Let's say that your ultimate goal is that you want to be a pediatrician. That's awesome. This is going to be your final step. Everything that we are going to be moving backwards from is in pursuit of the ultimate goal of being hired as a pediatrician. So let's go into what steps we're going to need in order to achieve this ultimate final goal. In order to be a pediatrician, you really only need one thing, and that is a license. You have to be licensed to practice pediatric medicine in your state. Otherwise, that's going to cause kind of a lot of problems because unlawful practice is not the greatest start to your career. So, okay. Well, in order for us to be licensed to practice pediatric medicine, we have to pass our state's medical boards. And in order to do that, we have to complete a residency in pediatric medicine. Now, for those of you guys who have seen any type of medical show, whether it's House, Scrubs, Grey's Anatomy, The Good Doctor, there's a lot of medical shows that I can reference here. All of those college students that are following a doctor around, those are students who are in medical school who are completing what's called their residency. So they are getting their hands-on training before they have the full license. They are there on the scene learning from the experts. But before you can even think about completing your residency in pediatric medicine, you have to earn a medical degree. You have to get all the coursework done before you can even think about that residency. So, okay, what do we need in order to earn a medical degree? We have to get accepted into medical school before we can even take those classes. So, okay, to get accepted into medical school, we have to take the MCAT. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with what that is, the MCAT is basically the ACT or the SAT that you need to take in order to get accepted into medical school. That is what is showing any type of medical college that you have the required knowledge to pursue that further education. But before you do that, you maybe want to get a bachelor's degree, probably in pre-med, but it can also be biology or something along that lines that is going to make logical sense of why you would be applying to medical school. You don't want to go to school for creative writing and then decide, you know what, I have this bachelor's degree, I want to be a doctor. That's different than what we're trying to pursue. You can technically be a doctor, but that's a PhD, and that's different. And we'll get into that difference between a doctor and a doctorate in lesson 12. But we are focusing on a doctor, a medical doctor. So in order to earn a bachelor's degree, you got to be accepted into a 4-year college. Or you can transfer from a 2-year college or community college, so that it saves you a little bit of money. And then finally, the last step that you need to do before you can get accepted into a 4-year college is you have to have your high school diploma. That's your step 1. And that is something that you can do at Job Corps if you haven't gotten it already. So don't worry and don't panic, because my goodness, I have had my fair share of students go, that is so complicated. And you're right. What you see on the screen right now is significantly more complicated than what we are going to guide you through with myPACE. But this is an example of how you can plan backwards so that you can move forward with confidence. We know every single step that we need, so we feel comfortable going from one stone to the next. And that's the goal of myPACE. So, having our plan to be a pediatrician in mind, what might we do immediately after leaving Job Corps? What is our very first step of what we would do after we have completed our training at Flint Hills Job Corps? Out of those 10 steps that we identified, the one that would be immediately after we complete our basic training at Job Corps is getting accepted into a 4-year college or transferring from a 2-year university or community college. So this is what we refer to as our pathway. In this instance, the pathway that you would be looking at if you wanted to be a pediatrician is college. College is non-negotiable in order to go and be a medical doctor. So, out of the 5 different pathways available to you, advanced training, college, apprenticeship, military, and entry-level work, in this instance, we would be focusing in on college. So this is a graphic that you are going to see quite often through the different lectures of myPACE. So these footprints represent your career plan as a whole. And as we go through myPACE, we are going to focus on 3 specific steps for career planning. The first is going to be your long-term goal, your profession. What's your end game? Next, we're going to focus on your midterm goal, which is the placement pathway. And this is your very first step when you are finished with your Job Corps basic training. And you do have 5 options available to you, to reiterate what I said earlier. We have advanced training, college, apprenticeship, the military, and entry-level work. So, after we've identified the long-term goal, we're going to talk about which of the placement pathways is going to make the most sense for you and your career plan. After that, we're going to focus on your short-term goal, which is your program. So, that's going to be your trade, and that's going to be what you are working on during your time at Flint Hills Job Corps. And the reason that we do this is because when you know the path in advance, you are less likely to struggle. Planning backwards is going to help you move forwards efficiently, because as you go through myPACE and then start your trade, your path is already there. And you are able to make your way through all of these steps without feeling overwhelmed or that you're not planned for what comes next. And obviously there's going to be some things that you can't account for, but that's every plan. But that's no excuse to not have a plan. We do this because we have your success at heart. So, take your time and make this a career plan that you're going to actually use. I don't want you to go through myPACE and go, I have to do this. Every student has to do this, so I'm not going to take it seriously. I don't want you to think of myPACE as a waste of time, because it's not. This is your chance to plan out your next steps in an environment where you can ask questions, you can do research, and you can really assess your options. Don't take this time for granted, because it is going to help you so much in your time to come at Flint Hills Job Corps. Because this is going to tell staff what they need to do in order to help you best. You are in control of what you need help with, but we can't help you, properly at least, unless you put it on that career plan. So set yourself up for future career happiness. What you're going to do to complete Lesson 2 is go on to the myPACE website and indicate 3 advantages to having a career plan versus just applying for jobs like crazy. And let us know if there is anything in this lecture or about backwards planning that confuses you. If you do have questions, reach out to your myPACE coach. We're happy to help you. And I will see you guys, in the metaphoric sense, in the next lesson. Have a great day.